Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Mono Balagbobo. You don't need to guess our focus today on the show. It has to definitely be a Rivers political crisis. So let's go through our talking points. First, we'll look into Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency and Fubara's suspension, pipeline explosion, and of course, other next line of talking points will focus on Governor Fubara's reaction to the state of emergency and the role of National Assembly in the state of emergency declaration. We'll give you updates from the National Assembly, looking at some of the reactions to the development so far. Also, we look into a review of the legality and constitutional provisions surrounding the state of emergency declared in Rivers State. Our guest today on the show is Treasurer Timi Dare, a public affairs analyst who joins us live from Port Harcourt, Nigeria. He is a media marketing and broadcast journalist. Also, Barrister Ben Emerua will join us again on the show today. He is a civil rights activist. So let's take a quick breather. We'll be right back to break it all down for you. President Bola Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State following the protracted political crisis in the state. Tinubu made the proclamation during a nationwide broadcast on Tuesday, suspending Governor Similaye Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and all the members of the House of Assembly for 6 months. The president has nominated Vice Admiral Ibokote Ibas, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state for the first 6 months. The president relied on Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution to make the proclamation. The section interprets a state of emergency as a situation of national danger, disaster, or terrorist attacks in which a government suspends normal constitutional procedures to regain control. Now, a state of emergency allows the president to immediately make any desired regulations to secure public order and safety. Let's have a listen to some of the sound bites from the president's address last night.
Fellow Nigerians, I feel greatly disturbed at the tone we have come to regarding the political crisis in Rivers State. Like many of you, I have watched with concern the development, with hope that the parties involved who are.
Since October 2023, it seems there is no end in sight to the feud and past tussle between our Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and ex-political godson Fubara. I mean, all talking about Rivers' political structure. That's what the fight is all about. Now, we've been raising concerns on this show, given the momentum of how things have been playing. And recently, there were reports of pipelines reportedly exploding in the state as the political tension heightened, with civil servants threatening mass protests against the Martins and Mewule group in the House of Assembly that is most definitely loyal to the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. Now, let's bring you updates as of today. The Senate stepped down its first order to, of course, approve the proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State until 3 p.m. without providing much explanation for the delay. The motion, sponsored by Senate Leader Okoyemi Bamidele, was expected to be debated and voted on during the morning session. However, lawmakers unexpectedly deferred discussions. The motion states a clear worry over the escalating tensions which have paralyzed the state and hindered the delivery of democratic dividends to its residents. But on the contrary, let's have a look at some of the thoughts shared by Governor Fubara just early today. He said that he is with a deep sense of responsibility, urging people to be calm as they navigate the unfortunate moment in the state's political history. He said since assuming office as governor, all his actions and decisions has been guided by his constitutional oath of office and a great sense of duty, prioritizing the protection of lives and property, ensuring continuous progress in the state. And he said despite this crisis, they have continued his government to maintain constitutional order and the rule of law putting the interest of the people above all else. And immediately after the president's intervention to broker peace, he said he did not hesitate to implement the agreed terms in good faith, including welcoming back commissioners who had previously resigned on their own volition. Furthermore, he said he moved swiftly to comply with the Supreme Court's judgment and immediately received a certified true copy of the judgment to return the state to normalcy. He said these steps were taken not for personal gains, but to foster peace, unity, and stability in the state. That's just some of his thoughts that in his reaction to the president's move for an SOE. Now, let's take a look at some reactions from the PDP spokesman, Ologbodiyan, who said that this is unconstitutional, talking about the declaration suspending the democratically elected governor of Rivers State, Fubara, and the appointment of unelected individual Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas to govern the state. The PDP says this is a clear attack on our nation's democracy and abrogation of the votes and democratic right of the people of Rivers State to choose their leader under the Constitution, saying the action of Mr. President therefore clearly borders on attempt at state capture. It is the climax of a well-oiled plot to forcefully take over Rivers State, for which the All Progressive Congress has been bent on stoking crisis to ensure that democracy is ultimately truncated. And Atiku on Facebook said anyone paying attention to the unfolding crisis knows that President Bola Tinubu has been a vested partisan actor in the political turmoil engulfing Rivers. His blatant refusal or calculated negligence in preventing the escalation is nothing short of disgraceful. Beyond the political scheming in Rivers, the brazen security breaches that led to the condemnable destruction of national infrastructure in the state land squarely on the president's desk. And we move over to the Labour Party, where Peter Obi, in a post on X, said it has plunged us back into a state of lawlessness, hugely undoing the progress that we have made in these 26 years of democratic journey. It is a degrading backdoor imposition of martial rule on a strategic part of the federation with all the implied negatives. And of course, in his statement, he appealed to the National Assembly and all stakeholders not to allow this to stand, as it only deepens the culture of impunity and brigand already threatening our democracy as a nation. And just to give you a little update at what went down at the National Assembly today, there were heated conversations at the House of Representatives. And of course, we brought to you that the Senate actually moved down the motion to actually have this state of emergency effective till 3 p.m. So later on in the course of our conversation, and of course, probably tomorrow, we get more information about what really went down at the National Assembly. But for now, enough talk. Let's get to our guests. Of course, joining us all the way from Port Harcourt, our guest, Ben Emeruwa, civil rights activist, joins us now. Thank you so much, Barrister, for being with us.
Thank you, Mana. Thank you.
So let's start with your immediate reaction to the president's declaration. Is this the final nail in the coffin to the crisis? Because there's some people who feel that the people are not going to accept this.
Okay. Thank you, Mana. I want to say that my first reaction, which I'm sure is the same reaction from a lot of persons, was that of shock. This is because a lot of us went out yesterday. Like myself, I went to the office. There was no breakdown of law and order. Everybody went about their daily business, daily activities and routine. And towards the evening time, when we got this shocking declaration, it was a lot of us were taken aback, because the statement or proclamation of the president was, firstly, parts of it were constitutional and parts of it were unconstitutional. So River State indigenous, River State residents are a little bit surprised.
I'm so glad I'm talking to you because you're a lawyer, so you can actually help us break this down. You talked about parts of what the president said being constitutional and another part not being constitutional. Can you explain further?
Yes, please. I would like to divide, if you don't mind, the proclamation of the president yesterday. into three parts. The first one is this. In his proclamation, he declared a state of emergency. Secondly, he suspended for at least a minimum of 6 months all elected officials in Rivers State, which includes the governor, the deputy, and the House of Assembly members. And the third thing he did was appoint a state administrator for Rivers State for that duration of state emergency. Based on the Constitution of Nigeria, the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, as amended, only one of those actions were constitutional, which is declaring a state of emergency. He is empowered in section 305 of the Constitution to make such declaration. However, there is no part of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that empowers the president to suspend a sitting governor, elected governor, the deputy, and the House of Assembly members. He may have taken a precedent from former President Olusegun Obasanjo at the beginning of this Fourth Republic, who did a similar thing to the Plateau State governor then when there was a little bit of religious crisis. However, if something is unconstitutional, this sitting president at that time was a major opposition to the actions of then President Olusegun Obasanjo. And he quoted similar stance, saying suspending an elected governor was in the wrong. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of us are surprised and a little bit bewildered that this president, despite his opinion at the time, is taking this position, taking unconstitutional powers into his hands and imposing it on the people of Rivers State. We have to stand for rule of law. Separation of powers is a vital part of the principle of rule of law. The president is a very, very democratic person, and I do hope steps are taken in coming days to rectify these unconstitutional decisions that he took. I do hope so.
I want to take you to some strong comments by the opposition. That's Atiku, PDP, and Peter Obi. Those reactions from opposition that we have tracked. I mean, using words like state capture, political maneuvering. Peter Obi talked about taking us back 26 years of progress in democracy. What are your thoughts?
Well, Mana, you see, politics is a very conscious game. It's a game where men, women who are involved in that system are critical thinkers. And as such, the opposition in Nigeria today can infer that the actions of the president has political tendencies. They can infer. But in my opinion, I would always advise the opposition to always fight and talk about the interest of the people so that people don't just look at their statements as being generally political at every point in time. We're talking of the people of Rivers State. We're talking of a state that houses, it's one of those states that has multiplicity of ethnicity. Everybody is here. And as such, the people of Rivers State interest will come first. So the position of the opposition as regards to the political, underlining of this president's actions, yes, if we want to speak to the politics, we can say that maybe, allegedly, that, there is some political undertone here. Because remember, Rivers State was vital to the president's emergence as the president in the last general elections. So it might not be too far-fetched for the opposition, political opposition, to hold that position or hold that stand, as regards to the actions of the president. This is because, still, my brother, let me tell you, pipeline vandalism happens almost on a weekly basis in the Niger Delta. It happens on a weekly. That is why we have forces. We have security operatives, security contractors like Tantita Security being run by Chief Government Otompolo, who are operational in the creeks, operational in all of these pipeline installations. They are doing a very serious job. And hence, hinging his declaration of state of emergency on pipeline vandalism, I mean, maybe he has received superior information, superior video footage, which is not in the public domain, or maybe he has received superior intelligence gathering information, which is not in the, in the public domain, but hinging pipeline vandalization on, on that and declaring, state of emergency in a state where everybody goes about doing their daily tasks. I mean, come on. And let me just point this out, Mana, before you caught me in place. Section 11.4, Section 11.4 of the Constitution of Nigeria provides for an instance where the House of Assembly of a state, for whatever reason, is unable to continue in its legislative duties. That part of the Constitution provides that the National Assembly can step in and make laws on behalf of the National Assembly of that House of Assembly of the state. For the time being, there has been no break of law or breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. The Constitution provides for a lot of these instances. That is why we are saying and asking why the hasty declaration. I wish lawyers around the president can point this out to him. He has advisors. Section 11.4. Let them go through that provision of the section of the Constitution. It is saying the National Assembly can, in certain situations where the House of Assembly of a state can, for whatever reason, no longer continue in its lawmaking duties, maybe for the issue of maybe a peculiar situation to that state or whatever reason, but they can step in and continue legislative duties. Because, of course, House of Assembly in Rivers State declared recess sine die, that is indefinitely, and as such, it's as though there is no legislative arm in Rivers State, but the Constitution, in its wisdom, still provided for those situations. That is why we are saying maybe the president took a hasty decision in declaring state of emergency because of 2 pipeline explosions that we've seen in the media. Maybe, like I said, there are other intelligence information that he has received, which we are not privy to. So that's my opinion.
Now, it's been a while we had a military administrator. Does this set a precedent?
Yes. You see, I am a civil rights activist, and I'm also an advocate for constant and continuous democracy. You see, because there's a saying that the worst democracy is better than the best military or dictatorship regime. The last time we had this kind of situation where a military personnel was appointed was in the case of Plateau State. President Obasanjo actually did a similar thing, but I want to point this out. At that point, we were just very fresh into the Fourth Republic, and a lot of tensions occurred. This is not the first time state of emergency has happened in Nigeria. It's not the first time, but getting, civilians, Democrats, people who are, born, canvassers for democracy, seeing that a sole administrator to be appointed by the president still goes back, to the military. It is one of those areas where I feel Nigeria still has a long way to go. I understand from whatever advice or reason the president may have given for his choice or decisions, but I will still say this again. The president of Nigeria, based on the 1999 constitution of this country as amended, does not have constitutional powers either to suspend a governor who was elected or to appoint a sole administrator who was not elected by the people. What it means is that a democratic government will not rule Rivers State for 6 months. It means Rivers State will be ruled through the whims and caprices of the sole administrator who was not elected. How do you assess a sole administrator? How do you send your complaints? Just like an elected governor, there are ways to send complaints to him. How do you send those things? How do we assess a sole administrator? It's as though you are taking us back to pre-1999 situations in Rivers State. And it's pitiable, it's condemnable. I do hope the president looks critically to the voices of the people, the voices of the citizenry. Because if the government do not feel that the decision or position of their government is just, then such laws, such declarations, proclamations are as good as being called unjust. I want to borrow the quote of the late Supreme Court Justice Oputa, where he said that law triumphant and justice prostrate is a sorry spectacle, and that law should be only but a handmaid to justice. What does it mean? It means that in any situation where government orders, government proclamations are being issued on the people, the interest of the people, justice must be seen and very clear to have been done. But in this situation, based on public opinion, I don't know. It's dicey. Was justice done? Are the people of Rivers State happy? Is law not carrying the day? Is justice not being prostrate with law being triumphant? I say, let posterity be the judge. And I want President Tinubu to understand that posterity will definitely, judge his actions in Rivers State today.
Mr. Ben, talking about posterity, Nigerians are recalling the president's reaction while he was in opposition, I think during the Obasanjo era. And I mean, looking at all that played out, some people are calling the president a bit of a hypocrite. What are your thoughts to those assertions?
His position does seem a little bit hypocritical because, listen, in 2004, when the Plateau State governor was suspended, what happened was this. The current president then was the governor of Lagos State, and he was very vocal as regards to the legality or otherwise of the then President Olusegun Obasanjo. And what we noticed was clear. He kept on repeating the unconstitutional nature of his actions as regards to suspending an elected official, as regards to also appointing a sole administrator. So I want us to always remember, posterity is something that it will always come into play. If the Constitution does not give you powers to suspend elected officials, does not give you powers to appoint sole administrator, and you are bringing in procedural grounds and saying on the grounds of procedure, on the grounds of making sure that, the things are sorted out and procedure, holds the day, then, my brother, arbitrariness is arbitrariness. Whether you are the president or you are the local government chairman, no matter whatever you are, the Constitution is our drawn norm. And the moment we start taking actions outside of our Constitution, Section 1.3 of the Constitution says that, then such actions are as good as void, as long as to the extent of their inconsistencies.
All right, our next guest is with us, Mr. Timi Dare, also joining us live from Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Thank you for being with us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let me come to you with regards to the atmosphere at the moment in Rivers State, starting from where you are in Port Harcourt. What can you tell us?
Well, I drove to work this morning, and of course, it's normal movement around town. Of course, Rivers people, I'm very sure that they've got to accept the fact that there's nothing they can do. Of course, you can't challenge the president of the nation. But the truth be told, those who wrote that speech for Mr. President did not do him well. I must be very honest with any of the parties involved. But of course, we must do what is right by following the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I'm glad you said that the current president now was the governor of Lagos State, when the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo, of course, withheld the funds for local governments in Lagos State. Because the president now, who was governor then, survived and went to court. And then the president who took over from Obasanjo, late President Yar'Adua, paid that money back to the state. Mr. President, because of his vested ambition, because of his ambition for his second tenure, wants to set the state on fire. And I don't know why he wants to do that for the interest of one man, one person. How can you suspend a governor for 6 months just because, people were saying yesterday that, okay, so what stops you from calling the governor, Fubara, and the Minister of FCT, and the Speaker, Martins Amaewhule, into a room and settle this issue between the three of them? Why do you have to blame the president, the governor of the state? Of course, we know that nobody is right. They have all made mistakes, and I'm sure that they were trying to see how they can, reconcile the whole state. Because the Supreme Court came, even though the governor said, we may disagree with the Supreme Court judgment, but to the latter, we will implement all the things we've been asked to do. And I'm very sure that he has started doing that. Of course, the other side have their own mission, which they were trying to, put in place, and that is the impeachment of the governor. All the statement, all the things that have been said, you just wake up within a few hours. You had a meeting with the security chiefs and the leadership of the National Assembly, and after that, you release that. Actually, before the meeting, that speech was already being recorded, and so you just inform them what you intend to do, and you did it and carried that on, and then you expect that people will not react. Of course, people will react. Of course, a lot of people will go to court. PDP governors have vowed to go to court. NBA has condemned the action. Prominent politicians have also condemned the action. Somebody will say, if you suspend the governor, why not suspend the FCT minister, so that it will be balanced in the whole situation? So I can, it should be balanced, because you cannot suspend one party and leave the other party, who of course was exhibiting more powers than he was doing. So for me, we have gone past this rape on democracy. You can see the way I'm dressed today. I'm dressed in black and black. I'm mourning the death of democracy in Rivers State. But that is not. My other guy is also dressed in black. That means I'm sure we didn't plan this. We are not happy. Nobody is happy with what's happening in Rivers State. This state is too. Contribute to the economy of the nation. Now you started hearing a lot of here and there since yesterday. If all these guys not supporting what they are doing, though, or if they decide to bring that economy of this thing, what's going to happen? The 2027 you are planning for, are we going to have it? So for me, I think action as a president, this is not the way to handle a situation like that. There are better ways to handle this situation, and not by declaring a state of emergency in Rivers State.
It's quite funny talking about mourning, but for you, this is not really funny. But for us, out here just watching it all play out, we did not expect it to get to this level. But let me come to Barrister Bennett. You're also wearing black. So just like Mr. Timmy, are you mourning the fate of democracy in your state?
I was going to come to that. I'm sure you've never seen me on black, plain black. And I intentionally did this because I'm a resident of Rivers State. And I am sure a lot of us today will go about our daily tasks with a frown on our face, a look of worry, because it's as though the president's proclamation did not put the people of Rivers State at the fore. I understand there is a political situation in the state, but is it a good step that collective punishment be meted on the people of Rivers State because of political actors? These are questions that should be asked. President Olusegun Obasanjo at the time declared state of emergency in Plateau State. There was killings that were hinged on not just ethnic basis, but religious basis, as a kind of, back and forth. In Kano State, Muslims were killing Christians, and I think in Plateau State, the Christians were retaliating as well. A state of emergency, the last time we had it was in Ekiti State in 2007, where Governor Fayose, 2006-2007, where Governor Fayose was impeached in a very shady manner by the Ekiti State government, but no elected official was suspended. I want to repeat this. No elected official was suspended. The Constitution, and that is where I want to hinge my own point of view. The good people of Rivers State are the people who are bearing the brunt of this. President Tinubu must ensure, firstly, he has to be seen to be neutral. Because his mode of justice now, the moment he's seen to be taking sides, he will lose the will of the people. He will lose the backing and support of the people. Just like my brother said, we're all in Port Harcourt. So a lot of persons are saying, why don't the FCT minister be suspended? That might not necessarily be possible because grounds has to be given. And maybe the president in his own discretion might suspend the FCT minister if he is no longer performing his duties as minister. But the bottom line is this, while asking for neutrality, the moment he is seen to be backing or siding one party, then his justice might be seen not to truly be justice, but merely him pacifying one side against the interest of the other. Section 11.4 is still there. Section 11.4, the president and his crew should go and read Section 11.4 of the 1999 Constitution. If the House of Assembly of Rivers State is no longer available for whatever reason to carry out legislative duties, the National Assembly has been held by the Constitution to still have such powers to make laws and legislate for the state for the time being. Nobody's shooting guns at anybody. There is no political, there's no civil unrest, there's no breakdown of law and order. There is no imminent danger that law and order will break down. Even in those places where you heard that there was vandalization of pipelines, news crew, your media crew were there. Nobody was being shot at. Nobody was being beaten. No persons were being threatened. They all captured the place where those incidents occurred. Pipeline vandalization happens on a regular basis in the Niger Delta. And as such, it may not be enough grounds for a president to declare state of emergency on the state and then proceed to carry out unconstitutional powers. Please, we're in a democracy. And this president has fought similar battle, like my brother was saying, when he wanted to create extra local governments in Lagos State at the time. The president of the federation at the time rejected it, and he fought that same battle. He was without allocation for years, many months. He fought the battle. Nobody declared state of emergency in Lagos. Nobody, because of political crisis. However, I want to say this. Maybe the president has taken this stance to bring both parties forcibly now to his table. Maybe to implement his own version of what he will see as peace and justice. Whatever he does, I want to say this, he must always make sure that his interest and focus will first be on the people of Rivers State who are the governed. And he must not be seen to take sides. Because if this thing degenerates into an ethnic or tribal bias situation, we don't want another Niger Delta crisis on our hands. The last time was not good. And we hope he is able to manage these things. Everybody in Port Harcourt, a majority of persons are moving around with a frown. You know why? We don't understand why we are now under sudden military administration. We have to call it what it is. There is no longer a democracy in Rivers State as of today. And the moment we start calling this thing for what it is, the better for us.
All right, thank you, Barrister. Let me get to Mr. Timmy. Do you agree that the pipeline explosion is not grounds enough for a state of emergency as proclaimed by the president?
Well, what we are saying is that all of those threats, all of those, it's normal, for people. It's normal for people to speak on their own, because they feel that they are being neglected because their brother, who is the governor of the state, is being threatened, by powers, from above. And so, well, in as much as nobody will support another crisis in Niger Delta, I've been for 6 years, so I've seen everything about Rivers State, I was there during the also former Governor Peter Odili, becoming governor. I've seen where I was at the inauguration ceremony of former governor Celestine Umega, Governor Amechi, and then former governor Wike, and now governor. So I can speak as someone who has seen it all and know all the tools and kinds of relatives and that travel based on what I do. Travel a lot to the creeks and all of that by boats, by normal boats, all the energy, all those boats and everything I can say about. So I know the terrain very well. And I just want to a good thing for us to start going up pipelines and all of that. But the truth is said, now when people are asking for something, what to do is to call them to round table discussion. And that was what the late President Yar'Adua did when he came as president and saw what was happening. He offered amnesty, to all of them. And of course, he came back to Nigeria. There was through the amnesty program. They have become good businessmen. Some of them have been trained and they work. So for me, when you saw all of those agitations, you should have at least called. Part of them went to see the president. I told them, go back and talk to the governor, which they, of course, they did. And they said, yesterday, I told you, I heard yesterday that part of them withdrew from intervening because the other party is not giving them room to talk to them and then see what they can do to find a solution. So, yes, the president may have stepped in based on that, but tell that the government will not talk to people what if it's not a judge that is blowing on the pipeline? What if? And that's the question. What if some people are trying to do this to crack corruption to the whole matter so that it could be said is the judge that really blowing on the pipeline? What you need to do is that many of us will see the truth and will not speak it out. And that's not what is good for this country. And the opinion that the president didn't act well. I must be very honest. He didn't act well. As a head of a nation, what should have done is basically call for an roundtable discussion. Yes. Okay, so go and implement this, go and implement that. And if you observe, even on the 8-point agenda of what the president has said, initially, Governor Mufara, of course, this of those things, the commissioners that resigned, he called them back and saw them back into office until they now finally made their final exit from the cabinet. So what I'm trying to say is that those threats of we'll blow up pipeline, we'll do this, we'll do that. We have the IYC, the Jewish Council is there. We also have the Joint National Congress that's there. I believe that the president will have summoned them for a meeting and say, look, talk to your people and let them talk all of this. And then let's see how to discuss this. You see, the ambition, the political ambition in this nation. Let me say this before I continue. Nigeria is the only country where we have, made political office very lucrative. And until we put an end to that, we had an SA, a PA, and all of this to social media influencers, SA media, SA new media to one political office holder or the other. People are no longer going to work. People go to school. You see a graduate, a master's degree holder, to a local government chairman, to a commissioner. That's all they struggle to do now, where they can go on social media and banter and accuse all their enemies, political enemies, insult each other. We have lost a lot of relationship through politics in Rivers State. It's alarming. I mean, it's very alarming. A lot of elected officials who are in politics today, who were my friends before they went to office as one thing or the other, because I don't support where they are, they're no longer my friends. And that's one thing that we need to reinvent the Rivers youth, so to say. If you go on Facebook since yesterday, you will see a lot of people celebrating what has happened to Rivers State. While others are not celebrating, others are celebrating because it favors their party. It favors their own side. And you're celebrating what is not right because it favors your side. How do we go? I mean, where do we go from here? So they will not see the immediate consequences now. But I'm very sure in the coming days, you and I understand and know how military is. So, but of course, we pray that it won't get to that level where people will begin to do things, take us into their hands, and the military will not sit back and watch the state turn into chaos. So for me, the president will have acted further by inviting the party again. There's nothing. Peace is priceless. Terror is senseless. We must give peace a chance. And this action, I pray that within the 6 months of this whole thing, where I pray peace to come back to the state, Because what is the structure? 2027 is not even here yet, and people are already struggling. Some person says in other states they've been killing people. We've not had one person being shot dead in Rivers State because of all of this. In the past, with this kind of tension, there have been political, physical assassination everywhere. But thank God it has not happened. So if it has not happened, why declare a state of emergency? That is the question. Why will you do that? But I think I see a firework at the National Assembly. I see a firework at the Senate. I don't see this flying. I don't see this getting support of all the senators. Already, Senator Shiraki Dixon from Bayelsa has condemned that action. And I'm sure that other senators will also speak against it. So I see another firework. And of course, you know, even when the minority is saying yes, they will always have it. So it's something that we should just put our hands and look at. I learned there's going to be a lot of court cases. I'm very sure of that. But of course, now, can we trust the judiciary again? That's the question. Can we trust them? The NBA has condemned the action. So let's see how it takes us, or where it takes us to. But my plea to Rivers youth, it is let us look if the elders, those who are above us or before us, and all this other issue. Why can't we as youth sit down and say, look, let's our principals, let's tell them what you are doing is not good, because in the future, what future holds for us? What future holds for us? So these are the things we must look at.
Let me come to you, Barrister Bennett. Do you see this being contested at the National Assembly? Of course, that it has been contested, but as at the time of putting up this program, we've not heard anything really concrete regarding whether this will pull through under the jurisdiction of the National Assembly. But what do you make of what could play out?
Mana, you see, and my brother Timmy, you see, Nigeria has 3 arms of government, and as such, we expect that when one arm is shooting beyond its powers, it is the natural expected action of the other arms to quickly come to the aid on the grounds of separation of powers and obeying the principle of rule of law. The president has acted ultra vires in 2 instances. I divided his action into 3. The first one is declaring state of emergency. He has constitutional powers in 305 of the Constitution to do that. The second one is suspending the governor. He does not have constitutional powers. In no part of the Constitution is it provided that he can suspend an elected governor or elected House of Assembly members. The third part is he has appointed a sole administrator. These 2 parts, that I called lastly, are unconstitutional, ultra vires, out of his powers. The National Assembly, as of today, are now going to be the hope of the common man. And I hope they can take up that mantle. Because before we get to the judiciary, based on the provision of this same section of Section 305, the National Assembly has to either approve or reject this declaration of state of emergency. I agree with my brother. There will be fireworks. There will be dissenting voices in the National Assembly. But the question still remains. Remember, we're practicing a democracy where majority carries the day. The question still remains. Do other persons who are not residents of Rivers State or indigenous of Rivers State, do they carry the same sentiments? Do they understand the true feelings of the residents of Rivers State? These are the questions that begs answers. I am hopeful as well. I cannot be, pessimistic. I have to be optimistic that the Senate today, the House of Reps, who have these constitutional powers to either assent or reject this declaration by the president, will do the needful. And the needful is this: condemn unconstitutional actions, condemn unconstitutional pathways that have been done by this president through this declaration. You can align for whatever reason with state of emergency, but you see, as I broke it down into 3, the other 2 actions are unconstitutional. Let's start from there. Let's uphold rule of law. They can argue state of emergency in court. But you see, if an action is unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. We should not butter it or let them not try to, make it, romanticize it. No.
Now, Governor Fubara's safety is a huge concern for those of us who've been watching this play out. Do you share the same concern?
Well, I'm sure this is not a coup, or this is not a military coup. it is the president declared a state of emergency. Whether it was right, it was not right, but definitely we'll get to that level. But I think that all those stories about, this is why sometimes I have issues with social media. I have to counter a particular story on Facebook this morning where I woke up and I saw that the incident that happened during the first attempt to impeach the governor, where the police shot, water, this into the governor, and then they say the governor has been arrested and blah blah. And I had to tell this. I say you must be sick in your head to put the kind of story on your page because you want to attract likes and the comment and all of those stuff followers. You don't do that. So I think it's high time we need to, know what to post on our social media handle. For me, it's not a coup. The government should not be under house arrest, and I don't think he's under house arrest. He has made a statement through his, through the press secretary yesterday, which is going around and it's trending, of course, his response and said, look, it's not about all things he did. It was not because of his personal, selfish interest, but for the entire state. And so I don't think the governor cannot be arrested because it's not a coup d'etat and it's not an impeachment. He has not been impeached. He has been only suspended by the president, so to say. The question of whether it's right or not right, we will know better during the National Assembly debate on the matter. Like I said, there will be fireworks, and of course, my colleague also agreed there will be fireworks. But let's see where it's going to end. And of course, we know that those in the country will not want to go against the president because with the way it is now, if this is allowed to stay, that means the president can wake up and suspend any governor henceforth. But another democracy that we are practicing, the president fought for this democracy to stay. So I'm not sure he will want to use his hand to destroy the democratic process that we have in the country at this moment. But he should be careful of those who are advising him and all of that. And someone was asking me, what would be the duty of the sole admin? Well, you can hear sole administrator, go and administer the state. There must be no vacuum in government. So someone has to be there. But everything that has to be done now will be done through the Federal Executive Council. So the governor is safe. There's no report of him being arrested or being under any house arrest. Why should he be under house arrest? He has to leave the place for the sole admin to take charge for the next 6 months. But I expect that the president will use this 6 months to see how he can, settle the whole issues so that Rivers can be back again. Yes, politics is also playing a part, a very big major part. But we should not allow politics to destroy the governance or the process that we have already put in place for democracy since democracy in 1999. So for me, let there be peace. Everybody should go about their normal business. It's not a coup d'etat. It's an emergency rule in the state. And the man that is at the head of affair is a retired military officer. So it's not we'll have military administrators. No, he is the sole administrator. That we need to explain to people to get it very real. Of course, you know that we're going to have a lot of online lawyers putting on the. I'm not a lawyer, but I always say that I know the law because based on the job that I do, I read the Constitution and I apply it where necessary. So I think we should be able to know what to post, what to write, what to comment, what to forward, as all the social media platform is buzzing since yesterday with different kind of comment, different opinion, press releases here and there. But I think Rivers State will be peaceful by the grace of God.
Now, Barrister Bennett, you are a legal expert. This state of emergency, does it sort of nullify the withholding of revenue for the state as prescribed by the Supreme Court's earlier judgment?
Okay, Mana, you see, funds or allocation to Rivers State were already suspended before this declaration of state of emergency. However, upon the suspension or state of emergency rule, it's no longer a matter of state allocation. Now, the president has spoken through his declaration yesterday that he will also be vetting regulations which the sole administrator will govern through or through that rule or regulations which he would be using to govern the state for the 6 months. He has also said that when the regulations are made by the sole administrator, it will be vetted by the Federal Executive Council, which he will then promulgate. The truth of the matter is this: state of emergency rule is a rule by the central government. As regards to allocation, as of today, there is nothing like a Rivers State accountant general who you say, okay, they are going to be receiving state funds or state allocation. Remember, it has been suspended. So everything now will follow the rule of the day, which is emergency rule. An emergency rule is done based on necessity. And the president, being, of course, the custodian of the funds of the federation, will, of course, fund his sole administrator. Now, as regards to allocation of the state, if truly that Rivers State normal allocation will be sent back to the state, then remember, the Supreme Court gave a decision on the basis that only when certain steps have been taken, democratic steps, I want to repeat, I want to emphasize democratic steps, can the Rivers State federal allocation be reopened for access by the state. State of emergency or emergency rule is not a democratic step. Emergency rule was not also provided for in the Supreme Court government as condition for Rivers State allocation to be paid to Rivers State. And as such, let it be clear, any number of months that this state of emergency remains, Rivers State allocation, the people of Rivers State are being deprived of their allocation. That decision by the Supreme Court was given before this declaration. And as such, there is no part of that judgment that says when a sole administrator is appointed, then the allocation should come to Rivers State. No, we are in emergency rule, and emergency rule operates on the doctrine of necessity. And as such, the president will, of course, for the sake of, order, sake of funding his administrator and his crew, I will call them crew, he would, of course, make provisions on how to fund this sole administration. But let me say, it is not based on the Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court never envisaged that emergency rule would occur in the state. And the Supreme Court did not ever say that upon emergency rule that federal allocation for Rivers State should be released. It should remain on record that Rivers State has not gotten allocation since the Supreme Court judgment. And until this emergency rule ends and democracy comes back to Rivers State, then we can start talking of statutory allocation. So whichever way, the doctrine of necessity has already been invoked, emergency rule. So the president will find ways of funding the sole administrator, because anything other than that will be, as regards to the funding, will be a gross violation of the Supreme Court order. And of course, you can expect a lot of lawsuits on that.
All right, many thanks for being with us on the show, Barrister Ben, civil rights activist.
Thank you, Mana.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Timmy. Your final thoughts as we round off.
This wasn't expected to, put an end to the political crisis as, started since October 2023 by doing the first impeachment attempt on the governor, Siminalayi Joseph Fubara. But all I want to say is that the governor and the deputy and the entire lawmakers have been suspended. The question remains, does the president have the rights or the power to suspend an elected governor of a state? I think the only, if I'm not mistaken, the only way to remove a lawmaker is recall from his constituency. But I've not seen that happen. So those are things we need to look at, and I'll leave that for the firework at the National Assembly, and of course the lawyers and those that will be going to court. But the question remains: do we still have a judiciary who, in quotes, will do the right thing? But for me, for Rivers Indigene resident, please go about your normal business. Don't fall into the hands of any, any law enforcement agency, so that you will not be, free for anything. Do your job, and for the sole administrator, I think you should come with a message of peace and see how you can also put an end to whatever is the issue. And for both sides, let's give peace a chance. Rivers State deserves to be peaceful because we are also part of this country, and there are a lot of other states that killings are happening. But we thank God that there is no killing as we reported, and none will be reported. So for me, to everyone, let's give peace a chance. Peace is priceless. Terror is senseless. Let's give peace a chance.
Many thanks for being with us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that's the much we can take. We'll be monitoring every development, and you can be sure to keep it locked on our digital platform, www.ln247.news, for all the latest developments. We'll be following everything. Of course, the reaction from the National Assembly and basically every political stakeholder regarding the Rivers political crisis. We will be following up with every detail, and we will be giving it to you right here live on LN247. But our time is up. We've got to go. Will this sue for peace? Will this bring about peace in the state? Only time will tell. 6 months suspension. That's a lot to still chew on. Well, for now, we've got to go. My name is Mono Balagbogo. Many thanks for watching.